Larson, and I want to share a very valuable lesson with you today. My operations manager, Amanda, will actually be going through step by step so you understand every single nitty gritty detail of how to do this operation. Here at Real Estate Mad Education, we don't believe in fluff. We believe in details. We want to give you actionable information that you can follow along with and go implement right away. I hope you enjoy this training. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is a video about sending an assignment of contract to your buyer. So an assignment of contract is typically used in a wholesale deal with a lower assignment fee, and it's very common, but there is more transparency to an assignment of contract than what you would see with two separate purchase agreements. So just keep that in mind. When you assign the contract, you must also send the end buyer your original contract so that they can agree to all of the terms set out. Once you have assigned the contract, you are no longer responsible or held liable, and they are the ones that are now legally obligated to close this contract. So it's really important they understand the terms of that original agreement. And then here are a few of the main benefits of using an assignment of contract. So profit, you get to profit from the real estate transaction, which is your assignment fee, without actually ever purchasing the property. Also, there's a lot less work involved for you. You kind of just step back after you assign that contract and then just make sure you get paid at closing. So whether that's contacting the attorney or title company to make sure they have your information so that they can get you that check at closing or wire you the funds. And then there's no closing cost. So the seller and end buyer are actually responsible for the closing cost for each of their sides. And you don't have any fees associated with the closing. If you were to double close with two separate contracts, you would then be responsible for closing costs. And also, using an assignment of contract is very low risk because you remove yourself from any legal obligation or responsibility when you assign that contract to the new party. They then assume that legal obligation. Okay, so it's important to note that not all contracts are alike. When you signed as the buyer of the original contract, just make sure that you double check all of the information and that it is a contract your end buyer would want to sign. So if it's not something that you would be okay closing with, your end buyer probably won't be either, and you need to negotiate that on the front end. So for example, we have wholesalers quite often send us assignments of contract stating that the buyer will pay all of the closing costs. Which when we buy these properties, we're the end buyer. And we never pay all of the closing costs for the closing. So that would mean we would be paying for the seller's closing cost and our own closing costs. So since we don't do this, I usually have to bump that back and either have them renegotiate the contract and make sure it states that, or one thing that we've done also is in that assignment of contract, we stipulate that the assigner, which is the person, the wholesaler that's sending us this deal, is the one that's going to pay these closing costs out of their own fee. So just make sure, again, when you're getting those deals under contract, that you're keeping all of those things in mind and making sure it's a contract your end buyer would want to sign. And then as far as the earnest money, so on our own contracts, we only put up $1 earnest money. So when we assign that to a new buyer, it's not a big deal. But if you were putting up more earnest money, you would want to be sure to account for that when you assign your contract. I see it all of the time when people assign contracts. They forget about that earnest money they have on their original contract. So they won't get their earnest money back if they don't account for that. So make sure that you definitely include that in that fee so that you recoup all of your earnest money that you have out there. Title company and attorney. So on that original contract, even though you're not actually purchasing the property, you'll still want to consider that the end buyer will want to use their own title company. Any deals that we close, we always use our own title company. So we don't want to be strapped down with some random title company because we're just going to kick that contract back and say, no, we're going to use our own title company. So on those contracts, just make sure that you include buyer's choice or to be determined for the title company so that the end buyer can have their choice of where they close. And then the assignment fee. This is a really big question. So when do you collect your assignment fee? The more money that you can get up front, the better. We suggest getting the entire assignment fee at the time the assignment is signed. So this would usually be in the form of a cashier's check, and it's always held with the title company in escrow. So you don't get it right away, but you will get it when the deal closes. And that's just to make sure that earnest money is there. So you don't have to, chase down the person to try and get that yourself. We want that in escrow with the title company so that it's safe, it's there. And we always make the assignment fee non-refundable. So as long as the closing isn't canceled due to, it's nobody's fault. If the title can't clear, those kind of things, you're not going to hold the person then responsible if it's out of their control. So in those cases, we would totally refund their assignment fee. But if the deal is canceled for any other reasons, that assignment fee is non-refundable. So if they can't, sell the property if that's what they're trying to do, or any other reason, we want to make sure that we're covered. And then the only way, again, that they get that money back is if the title can't clear and the deal has to be canceled. Typically, a deposit may be more realistic with the remaining assignment fee paid out upon closing. So try to get a large enough deposit to cover any expenses that may occur should the end buyer not close. So you want to get that, any fees or costs associated with the original contract. You want to make sure you're covered so you're not coming out of pocket with those if this deal doesn't go through. And then make sure that the title company has your contact information, again, so that they can send the assignment fee to you after the deal closes. And then, so there's a few more details as far as defaults and contract prohibitions here. So if the end buyer does default, if the buyer fails to close, you can keep the money that you collected up front. So that's what we were talking about as far as just protecting yourself, making sure that you're covered. And then from that point, you can try to extend the closing date with the original seller so that you can try to resell this to a new buyer. You might have to offer that initial seller some additional money to extend, usually something small like $500, but a lot of times most sellers are okay with extending for a short time at no cost. So of course, always try free first, but if you get a little bit of a hard time, go ahead and just offer them a little bit of money to extend. And then contract prohibitions. So if you aren't assigning your original purchase contract, make sure the original contract you have with the property doesn't have prohibitions for future assignments. This mostly pertains to listed properties like bank-owned properties, HUD deals, or other MLS type deals. You could have some problems reselling that within a specific amount of time of your purchase. Off-market deals, not so much. So just keep that in mind. And then below is an example of our assignment of contract template. It's very, very simple, but just keep in mind we're not attorneys and we can't provide you with legal advice, so always double check if you plan to use our template. Check with an attorney in your area to make sure that this template can be used. So here's what ours looks like. Very, very simple. And then there's a few keynotes on how to actually fill this out. So the assigner, this is the person who's assigning the contract, so that's the name you would put in that spot up top. Assignee, the person assuming the contract. The seller, the person who's listed as the seller on the original contract. The assignment fee, so the difference in the agreed upon price and the price the property is currently under contract for. And then again, don't forget your earnest money. And then contact information. So it's a good idea to include your contact information. You can always just put it down at the bottom of the assignment. That's totally fine. Or just include it in an email to the title company or attorney that this is being sent to, so they know who to send that assignment fee to. So I hope that helps. That was just a little bit about how to send an assignment of contract to your buyer. If you want help from Matt's team to generate 10 to 15 verified buyer leads per day, send an email to hello@realestatematt.com with a subject line that says buyers.